Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Stefan, and skip the pleasantries again because we're coming back into our map making tutorial. So this is the third part of it. In the first part, we covered continents, islands, and general coastline. In the last part, so part 2, we covered oceans and getting that separated from the rest of the landmass. So now we're going to be going into the next part. So without further ado, let's just do it. All right, welcome back. So, as you can see, we're coming in from our previous design of having the continents in, the islands in, and then we went through and we colored in what was going to be water. So now what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go in with the black pen, and now I'm going to start by drawing in the coastline. So with the coastline, I'm kind of just staying just a little bit out, like so. I'm not going too far in because I want to give basically the impression of a coastline. And what's nice too is you'll notice I'm just kind of putting in almost the impression of the line. It doesn't have to be necessarily perfect lines all the way through. And when I do like this, I'm just going to go around and, again, there's not an official how it has to be. Like this. Basically what I'm going to do is just go in and draw around everything that I've already drawn. Now, when you have a pure black and white map, like no shades of gray at all, one thing that you'll oftentimes see is 1 or 2 lines on the outsides of the coast, just to distinguish what is water and what is land. Because, yes, it does matter to know what is land and what is water. And one thing about this too, this is just kind of a personal preference. Now again, when I'm doing these, this is how I personally do it. So it's not necessarily going to be what works for some people. That is fine. Like I said, I'm going to show how I do fantasy maps. But if you notice, in this area here, where it doesn't have that line, it just kind of feels like it's maybe a little bit on top of the water per se, whereas by having the line in there, it kind of gives the impression of extended coast. One thing you can kind of think about in there, high tide and low tide. If you've got tides in your book, I figure if it exists in, Earth, it's fine here. But maybe kind of imagine that when the tide goes out, then it's going to lower the water level and it's going to bring some of this stuff out a little bit more. So, again, I'm just going around. And one thing that is a little bit frustrating is this just takes time. This stuff, it takes time just to do. And maybe sometime after I get a little bit better with technology and the process, I'll go through and I'll show you how I do this digitally. So like I was saying earlier, this is the technique that I do when you're drawing. When you're doing it just like on computer, then you can actually use a lot of different tools that will make this whole thing a lot easier. But again, because I am hand drawing, I have to think about a lot of stuff I'm doing before I do it. So like, case in point, once I get done with the outline of this map and I start doing the pen, I'm pretty much locked. Like at this point, if I wanted to add another island, I still could, but really because I've got the black line here, if I wanted to add another peninsula on here, it wouldn't really work. So starting, you kind of just go at what point it's going to be enough, and at some point it's going to be done, and then you just accept that and move on. But here's one of the cool things about a fantasy map. Because this world doesn't exist, then whatever you do is fine. If you have islands here, that's cool. If you look and say, I kind of would like to have a peninsula there, well, you know, we can't exactly say we'd like to have a peninsula somewhere in the real world. We just have to accept it. So, at some point, there is a little bit of an acceptance where you go, you know what? It's down, it's drawn, it's not changing, so it's canon now. There's actually something really, really comforting about when you have something down permanent, because when it's permanent, then you can build on it. Otherwise, everything is all up in the air. That was the other thing, too, about when I wrote and published my book for the first time. Suddenly, I had something that was finalized, and I couldn't just go back and change things. Suddenly, I had stuff that was established lore, and now I had to build on it. And so, even though it does feel a little bit more restraining, by having that down, it meant that I had something that I could build on and was no longer wishy-washy. So when you go through, it's a great feeling to get your first book done, because suddenly you then have rules that you can build on and they're locked. So until that moment, you can have characters and have them be one name, then you could change that name if you wanted, but as soon as they're written, they are who they are, and that's it. So kind of like with the maps. Once you have the map drawn, then you have that piece locked in, and it is what it is. Like it or not, it exists. So you'll also notice I'm not being super exact about how I'm following the coastlines. I've got
for water. DQ is taking your taste buds for a ride with the new signature stack burger menu, featuring 5 mouth-watering cheeseburgers, like the loaded A1 stack.
Young skin tone. So then, from where were we? We were at
I've got these guys here. Like this. So this is almost done. Like this. But I'm not following, like I said, too exact, because it doesn't have to be perfect. That's one thing that's fun about art. Art doesn't have to be perfect. Art is kind of whatever you want it to be. So sometimes it's going to look very precise. Other times you just kind of have to accept that maybe something isn't going to be the way that it is in reality, but it works awesome in art. But kind of also thinking from a artistic or from even a real world standpoint, who knows what the topography is inside here? Who knows how deep stuff goes? So maybe it just kind of goes out this far, and that's just how it is, you know? Do I know what this world is going to look like? I do not. Do I know necessarily where the rivers are? Well, I said I wanted a river down here, but what about the others? Do I have any idea about other river waterway systems? Nope. Not right now. I'm also not worrying about that right now. And one thing too about creating maps like this, you'll note that this is the video right after I said, here's what to prepare for. And there's actually a very good reason that I did this map tutorial now. And that's because when I was writing my book for the first time, I started off, got a few pages in, and then I got stuck. I wasn't sure where I was going to go with it. I wasn't even sure where things were. I wasn't sure where my characters were. I didn't have any good idea of the world itself. So I stopped everything and I made a map. And by making the map, then I could make something that I could then reference. And to me, I'm a visual learner. I use pictures, I use graphs, I use just anything that I can see that helps me. Okay, so I got that whole coastline done, excellent. Now I'm going to go in and do my other coastlines. But anyways, so because I am a visual learner, once I got the map done, and then I could give various details about where the other countries were, where the cities were, then I could build on that. And then I can go, oh, well, this main city is going to be right here, and that's going to be pretty far away from this starting spot. So we'll just go from there. And I'll take that into consideration. Then you'll have other areas, and they'll be close by each other. So then comes the question, okay, are these allies? Are they enemies? If they're allies, at what point did they become allies? So that's story in the background. If they're enemies, that's more story. Are they kind of at peace, at war, because they're waiting for something to trigger that? Who knows? Again, more story. What major events happened in history? Again, more story. And so you start thinking about all those little things, and again, you have a map, and I like to fill said map. So when you start filling it, you fill it with people and places and essentially stories. So fortunately, this particular part took a lot less time than our first part. So now what I'm going to do, this is kind of the interesting one, I'm going back with my pencil. And I'm not going to shade anything in. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to go around and I'm just going to lightly erase around the coastline. And what I'm doing here is basically going through and I'm lightening that area that we've already established. Just going to go around. And you'll notice too, I'm not erasing completely because I don't want it to be gone. I just want it to be less. So then I erase here like this and like this. Go like that, go like that. I'm going in here like this. Now, you're also noticing I'm cutting into the main stuff. That is perfectly fine. I'll get into that in a second. So, like that. Let's go around like that. There. Oh, you know what? Huh, I actually forgot an area up here. How silly. Just fill that in like that. Let's go like here. Then go a little bit more like this. Then I went up here, so this area like that. Then I'll just come back here. Just do a little like that. And down here, like so. This area a little bit like that. I'll come down here. Just kind of erase like that. That's fine. Like that. And remember how I was saying that I didn't give too much emphasis on doing the shading in between? Well, this is partly why. Because now I'm going through and just lightening up that area here like that. Okay, I'll do you there. Then go in here like this. A little bit there. Then here, do a little bit like that. Just kind of impression. Then go here like this. Just like that. Then maybe I'll lighten a little bit more in here just because I can. Like that. Okay, cool. I'll go up here a little bit more. There's not an official rule about what is what. Again, it's whatever looks right is the rule of draw. Okay. So a little extra there, a little extra there. All right. And now, I'm going to go back with my little piece of rolled up paper and just going to kind of lightly go over this area. Doesn't need to be much, just lightly. And really, I'm just trying to kind of take out some of that extra stuff that I don't need in there. Just like that. That looks all right. And going up here, just gonna kind of come in here like that, like so, and that looks good there. Kind of make that look a little bit like that. And again, it doesn't matter if you are completely exact. All that matters is that just give an impression. And like that. Okay. So now, as we can see, here I've got my mainland, and then I've got the water, and then in the areas that it's shallower, I've got that lighter, because that makes sense. You're going to be able to, when you're looking down, you're going to be able to see some of the land underneath the water. It's not going to be as clear as the land on the outside, but you're still going to be able to see a little bit. Now, another trick that you can actually do is going back to the pencil. If I go into an area that's kind of a big one, so like over here, for example, what I might do is I might draw a little bit more like this and just make that a little bit darker. And I'll do that because that will be an area where the water is deeper. So naturally, you won't be able to see as much on the bottom. And so maybe right in here, for example, maybe it's like really deep. Yeah, right in here. Maybe that's like pretty deep. And it's kind of a surprise because it's so close to the shore. But for some reason, that's really, really deep. And you know what? Because this is fantasy, maybe it's really deep such that some really great big beast is able to hide in there. And you know what? Let's add another deep spot right in here. And maybe there's some terrible creature that's taken up residence there. Lives on the very bottom of the ocean floor. And so when ships have tried to sail in that area, they actually get sunk. And it's possible that there are hundreds of buried ships just in this area. You know, and that's the thing. I don't even know what this story is going to be. I don't even know what the history is officially. But here I have just a simple thing of this is deep water. Well, what lives in deep water? You know, mysteries. Mysteries live there. So by drawing in this stuff, you're also kind of telling yourself, hey, maybe something can be here. Maybe something can exist in this little spot here. And when you do that, well, now it gives you more stuff to do for your own personal stories. And, you know, it could be something like this is a part of the local legends that a lot of people deal with. So that's why they don't sail there. Maybe your story is going to involve someone diving into these areas for a specific shipwreck, or they're just wanting to find treasure and then they encounter said monster. I mean, possibilities are endless just from one area of darker ocean. So when you're going and when you're creating these maps, create them with the idea that every part on this map can be a story. And you know, when you approach it from that way and you add those stories to your main story, it's amazing what can come. So thank you for that, joining me here. It was a lot of fun. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and Just remember, please like, subscribe, and share. Take care. Bye.